nerds, and welcome back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Theories and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd, Bad Nerd. This week we had episode 17, which focused heavily on Melinda. We got her backstory, finally got to see why she's called the Calvary. We also got a lot of good mother-daughter moments with Sky and Ji Yang. A lot happened this episode, and so there's some big theories that we need to talk about. First off, let's talk about Melinda and how she got her name, the Calvary. And I would like to point out that I was right. If you watched last week's episode, you know I theorized that Melinda was going to have to shoot an inhuman child. And that was devastating. That it is very easy to see why Melinda, especially with what she was going through with her husband and they were starting to plan a family, it is very easy to see why she took herself out of the field. That was devastating, and that flashback sequence, all of it was, I think, really well done. That being said, the two characters, the mother and daughter, I think they were unique to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't see any comic book correlation. If I'm wrong, let me know. I don't think it's going to be an important thing, unless it turns out that maybe the father of the little girl is someone important, and that could lead into other stuff. But as far as that goes, no connection at this moment. Let's move on to Sky and her mom and all that. First of all, the training sequences were pretty cool. They were subtle, but it showed just kind of an understanding that Ji Yang had on how to train people, but also on Sky's abilities and how they work, which I thought was pretty cool, especially the water sequence, the water glass, even though the cups did blow up. But the connection between Ji Yang, the Inhumans, and what happened with Melinda May, I think is going to become very significant, and I think this might be pushing towards a storyline in the comics that's called the Silent Wars. Obviously, it's called that because Black Bolt doesn't talk, and when he does, his power makes his devastation with his voice. But the Silent Wars are essentially some of the Terrigenesis crystals, the Terrigen crystals, were stolen by the U.S. government, and on one hand by Quicksilver. I don't think the Quicksilver thing is going to play into it, but I think the fact that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. we have diviners that are missing, and I really think that S.H.I.E.L.D. or the U.S. government is going to get their hands on them, and that is going to set off the Inhumans, and you're going to see a small version of the Silent War. You're not going to get the full blown out thing, because in the Silent War you have a lot of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four taking part in that, and that's just not going to happen in this. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that's where I think that conflict is headed, with kind of what happened with Melinda May when she had to put down the mother and the daughter, which, again, very tragic. But with how the Inhumans, and specifically Ji Yang, view S.H.I.E.L.D., that's the direction that's going. Next, Raina. We got new information on Raina and what her abilities really are looking like they could be. So I have a couple updates to my theories on who she could be. Right now, the three that I'm looking at, the first is Mantis. Now, Mantis is a popular theory online because she is in the comics universe, she's a known character, but she's not so well known that the average audience member would know who she is. And initially, it kind of works. She's got visual features that are kind of abnormal, but she's a precog and an empath. Precog, she has precognitive abilities, so that's that kind of seeing the future, being able to tell what's going to happen. And an empath, which she connects to people on an emotional level. And that is actually pretty cool, because Raina really was in touch with people and knew how to talk to them and things like that. But outside of that, it doesn't really fit. She has pyrokinesis, astral projection, chlorokinesis, which she can control plants, and self-healing ability. So there's a lot of stuff that Mantis has that we don't see in Raina. I'm going to say yet. We don't know if Raina is going to develop any more powers. So that's one option. The next is Dasidra. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now this one is actually really cool, and another very close possibility. She's actually an Inhuman. She does have also precog abilities, and she does have, again, a visual appearance that is off-putting. Another thing is she can sense the locations of things, and she's basically a tracker, a finder. In the comics during the Silent Wars, nice tie-in there, she uses her ability to help track down the crystals, and she finds that the US government has them in the Pentagon and that Quicksilver has a stash of his own. Now, it should be pointed out that Raina, before she was transformed, was basically some sort of tracker finder. She was hunting down and gathering people with abilities for her Project Centipede stuff. So that's, I think, a pretty cool... Now, she wasn't doing... She had a lot of help with the S.H.I.E.L.D. files and the Clairvoyant and stuff like that, but she was filling a similar role. So this is, I think, a nice possibility, obviously making changes for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because the Decidre character isn't really in it that much. And then the third, and this one is almost too good to be true, to the fact that it can't be, but I have to mention it. And this is Ellie Fimstar, I believe that's the name, and she actually goes by the awful name Negasonic Teenage Warhead. And if that name actually sounds familiar, it's because, well, I'll tell you in a minute, but she is, basically she's what you would consider a dream cog, or dream precognition. She sees the future through dreams, which is how Raina was actually able to see the dinner that Skye would have with her parents. So that actually ties in really nice. And she is kind of crazy looking, which fits with what's going on with Raina. The problems are, one, she's a mutant. So you would think that takes her off the table right away. But two, and actually even more unfortunate, not unfortunate because I'm looking forward to this, but she's already in a movie. She is going to be in the Deadpool movie. We've seen her on set with Deadpool in costume, so she's already there. So that really just does take her off the board. So those are the three. Obviously, Negasonic Teenage Warhead is not an option, but she just fits so well that I thought it was worth mentioning. Now, an interesting note, and this is how kind of maybe a loophole that Marvel is going to use to get around the mutant Terrigenesis, or how to use mutants in the MCU for characters that are actually even called mutants. I mean, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch obviously are exceptions, but how do you use just your everyday mutant that aren't strongly affiliated with the X-Men? And in the comic series Earth X, it is revealed that the gene that is responsible for mutation is actually the gene that is responsible for Terrigenesis. So it fits that when the Kree came, the reason their experiments worked on Earth is because of this mutant gene. They experimented on people that had this gene, and that's what created the Inhumans. So this does kind of leave a small loophole for characters that maybe aren't as popular or as well known or closely tied with the X-Men. Because then they can say, well, in the comics, actually, it's the same gene. I don't know how they're going to play it, but it's just an interesting loophole from the Earth X comics. So that takes us to kind of the last thing to theorize, and that's what Coulson is up to, this Theta Protocol. And there's two options out there. For most people on the internet, the most popular one is that he is setting up the Avengers Academy, which is very possible because you could see that being Fury's last wish, is that you don't let the Avengers Academy die, or you don't let the Avengers Initiative die. In fact, you keep it going by putting up a secret base where you're going to find superpowered individuals and keep them out of the hands of bad guys. And now it's interesting in the comics because almost all the students initially in the academy are children of villains, and so this is S.H.I.E.L.D's way of trying to, or the Avengers' way of trying to get these kids and get them on the right path before they go down the same road as their parents. So that's one option. The other option is something I've been talking about, and that's the Secret Warriors. This was a group set up by Nick Fury. They were kind of one of his trump cards in his war with Hydra and Leviathan. And, coincidentally, it is led by Sky. Well, in the comics, Quake, Daisy Johnson. So there is that nice tie-in there. It's got to be one of those two. The amount of money they say they're burning through in all those bunk beds does kind of push it more towards the Avenger Academy, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Next week, we get Ward is back, so we get to see that. More Deathlock, so that's always good. Hopefully, we're going to get enough on Ward that we can come up with another theory about who he might be and really narrow that down. I'm still really hoping for Taskmaster, but we'll see. And then last thing, Lincoln, the Inhuman, he's still pretty much useless. I'm sorry if you're a fan of his from some of his other shows, but in here, yeah, he's still useless. Anyway, so that's it. What do you think? What do you think Project Theta is? What do you think about who Raina could be? And what do you like? Do you like the idea of the Silent War? Let me know. Leave a comment in the down below. Hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. And until next week, this has been Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this has been Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Theories and Conspiracies.